You're listening to Now It's the News. I'm Beowulf Rockland. We hear a lot these days about what is going on in Washington, D.C., and it's certainly something that we should be paying attention to. But as we go through other news headlines, hear about Brexit, other events around the world, including our trade war with China, something that we are not hearing about, and yet something that involves millions of people and their human rights, is the situation with China and the Uyghurs. The Uyghurs are a predominantly Muslim ethnic group who live mostly in what is now Western China, and there are an estimated 1 million of them in that part of the world that are being held in camps around the region. That's according to a U.S. congressional report. And more people are coming forward in order to discuss the situation, to protest it, and one of them is here with us today. Salih Hudayar is the National and Political Affairs Officer with ETNAM. That's the East Turkistan National Awakening Movement. They are going to be holding a solidarity march from the White House to the U.S. State Department Thursday, December 20th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Salih, welcome to Now It's the News. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
First, if you could tell us about the East Turkistan National Awakening Movement. What is East Turkistan, and how does that play into what is happening to the Uyghurs right now in Western China?
So the East Turkistan National Awakening Movement is a human rights and political organization that represents the interests of the Uyghur Nation and all the Turkic peoples of East Turkestan. We are a nonprofit organization, and our main goal is to, our long-term goal is to restore East Turkestan's independence in order to ensure and safeguard the freedoms and human rights of our people and to ensure their long-term survival. We're a new organization. We've been in existence for about a little over a year, since roughly about the time that this concentration camp started. A little after, actually. So East Turkestan is the homeland of the Uyghur and other Turkic peoples, including Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, Uzbeks, and Tatars. Mm-hmm. So East Turkestan is what China today calls the Xinjiang Autonomous Region, Uyghur Autonomous Region. Xinjiang, meaning the new territory in the Chinese language, is a colonial-imposed term that the people of East Turkestan despise. So a lot of people don't know that East Turkestan is occupied. Like Tibet, East Turkestan was invaded by communist China and occupied in late 1949. In fact, our rally on December 20th is to condemn 69 years of Chinese occupation, and then also to call on to the United States government and the international community to help us stop what's essentially a genocide at this point going on in East Turkestan.
Give us a brief history of this region. Clearly, this is not area that has been traditionally governed from Beijing. What's the history of East Turkestan and its peoples?
So East Turkestan, has been the homeland of the Turkic people, especially the predominantly Uyghurs, for at least 4,000 years. It wasn't until the Manchu Qing dynasty invaded the region originally in 1759, and between 1759 to about 1862, the Uyghur people rebelled against the Manchu Qing dynasty some 42 times, and in 1863 they were able to establish an independent East Turkestan state in what is now East Turkestan. But then with the Great Game happening between the Russian Empire and the British Empire and the Manchu Qing dynasty, in 1876 the Manchus launched an invasion of East Turkestan once more and officially incorporated it into the Qing dynasty as Xinjiang, which means the new territory. So from 1884 to 1911, the region was under under the control of the Manchu Qing dynasty. And then following the Chinese Revolution in 1911, the region was ruled semi-independently by various warlords, including Manchu warlords, Turkic warlords, Uyghur warlords, and even Chinese warlords. But during the 1930s, with the rise of decolonization and rise of new nation states across the world, the Uyghurs rebelled once more against the Chinese warlords, and in 1933 they established the Turkish Islamic Republic of East Turkestan, and that lasted roughly about 6 months before the Soviet Union intervened and crushed it, fearing that the rebellion would spread to Western Turkestan, or what is now Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and then from 1934 to about 1943, it was ruled by a Chinese warlord under the influence of the Soviet Union. And then once more in 1944, again on the same day, on November 12, 1944, the Turkic peoples of East Turkestan declared independence once more under the East Turkestan Republic, which was a secular government, and that lasted until December 22nd, 1949.
We're speaking again with Salih Hudayar. He's the National and Political Affairs Officer for the East Turkestan National Awakening Movement. You know, it's fascinating and stunning to me. I took a class in modern Chinese history in college, and I can't remember once when there was mentioned, although you're referring to political eras in the history of China that I'm somewhat familiar with, the Uyghurs and the Turkic people being mentioned to any significant degree, if at all, in the course of that. I think it really speaks to the degree to which we in the West are desperately unfamiliar with this situation, especially dangerous, I think, in light of the fact that something really desperate and tragic is taking place there at the moment. What has happened, by the way, to cause this repression at this particular moment to happen on the part of the Chinese government, and explain what it is a little bit? Obviously, this is not unprecedented when it comes to the taking over of lands and the oppression of people, but what has changed now, and why is this taking place at this particular moment in time?
So, since Communist China occupied East Turkestan, the first thing it did was to rename the territory once more, and then to destroy to alter the history of the region, destroy historical texts regarding the region, and then obviously they have been colonizing the region. In fact, they have a 3.5 million strong paramilitary corps called the Bing Tuan, which focuses on colonizing the region. But over the years, China had tried to initially assimilate the Uyghur population. However, the Uyghurs were very resistant to the Chinese government's attempts to assimilate them. So after over 60 years of trying to assimilate them, the Chinese government now has gotten to a point where it's a very powerful country economically, even militarily and politically, to the point that in the UN, it's bought off. I don't want to say bought off, but it's has bought influence in the UN to where the United States Human Rights Council, on their UPR review, Universal Periodic Review, praised China. Over 150 countries praised some 150 countries praised China for its practices and development. So the Uyghur homeland of East Turkestan, it's situated in the center of Central Asia, and it's pretty much a crucial part of China's One Belt and One Road strategy, its Silk Road strategy. So in order to achieve its Chinese dream, Xi Jinping's Chinese dream, the Uyghurs have to be contained or eradicated. And it seems that the Chinese are trying to eradicate not just the essence of Uyghur identity, but also physically engage in physical eradication of the Uyghurs in these camps. Initially, starting in 2014, they targeted males between the ages of 15 to 45 under the basis that they were prone to become radicalized or be rebellious towards the state. Then officially in summer of 2016, they started targeting pretty much all populations, male, female, anyone who had any foreign contacts, anyone who had traveled overseas, anyone who had any religious or political background. So all these people have been thrown into these so-called re-education camps, but nobody other than a few foreign nationals, like citizens of Kazakhstan or citizens of Egypt, in the case of Mihrugul, have been released. A lot of people, according to the people that came out of these camps, these foreign nationals, people are being tortured in these camps constantly. They're being forced to renounce their ethnic and religious identity. Women are being raped. People are being forcibly medicated, and the Chinese government is disposing the bodies, those of the people that are dying in these camps, in so-called burial management facilities. In fact, funerals have been officially banned since 2017. Instead, the Chinese government disposes the bodies in so-called burial management facilities, which are crematories. And so it's essentially a modern-day Holocaust going on.
It sounds horrific, and I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the motivations, obviously nothing could justify the actions which you describe, but the motivations that the Chinese government have for doing this. Do I understand correctly that it's an expansion of China to the West? Does it have to do with our occupation of Afghanistan at the moment, and there being that border, that small strip of Afghanistan which extends to the West, and sort of increasing its sphere of influence in that direction, and the repression of the Uyghur being perceived as critical to that kind of strategy?
Yeah, pretty much. China's strategy, it's one belt, one road strategy, or the Chinese dream, is to make China the sole global hegemon, to make China the world's largest military power, not just the largest, but the most powerful military power, the most powerful economic power, and the most powerful political power. And China is investing hundreds of billions of dollars in neighboring countries and even parts of in Africa as well. It's engaging in neo-colonialism, and this is something that I want to warn our listeners and the international community, especially these countries that are accepting Chinese investment, is, when the Chinese first came to East Turkestan, they offered us development, modernization. They signed a 5 or 10-year treaty with our officials and said that, we're going to help modernize this region, and then after 5-10 years, we're going to leave. But they bring in their workers slowly. They bring in 100,000, then they up it to 1 million, and then slowly alter the demographics and colonize the region and control it. So that's something that we want to warn to our listeners.
Again, we're speaking with Salih Hudayar. He's the National and Political Affairs Officer for ETNAM, the East Turkestan National Awakening Movement. Obviously, in the United States, the context these days in which China arises the most is with regard to the United States' current trade dispute with that nation. As far as you are aware, has the human rights situation with the Uyghurs come up at all in trade negotiations as a part of the spectrum of what is being discussed?
Well, so the issue has been raised by the, obviously, Secretary of State Pompeo first raised this issue back in, I believe, July, in which he said, and then even Vice President Mike Pence raised this issue back in July as well. But it hasn't gotten to a point where I don't think they have been raising this issue in the trade talks. In fact, we have a petition to the White House, which has over 100,000 signatures prompting a response. And we still haven't gotten a response to that petition to the White House, asking them to sanction Chinese officials, to put the East Turkestan Uyghur issue on the table when discussing trade deals with China. But at this point, only the State Department has talked about the issue, but nothing officially from the White House other than Vice President Mike Pence talking about it at the Ministerial for Religious Freedom.
Tell us a few more details, if you can, about what has happened in these camps, and are people able to escape at all? Have we heard stories from people who have managed to get out, and what are some of the details that they have revealed?
So the few people that have gotten out are citizens